Okay, today I'm going to teach you guys the double GT Ninja Vanish, which looks like that. Now this is a hard trick, it looks scary, but with a little bit of practice and a couple of tips, it shouldn't be that hard to get. So obviously, you need to have mastered the normal Ninja Vanish. You need to have absolute control over that trick, be able to do it almost every time, if not every time, because otherwise there's just no hope for this trick. Now before I actually explain how you're going to make this trick happen, I'm going to explain the mechanics and why it's different than a normal Ninja Vanish. So in a normal Ninja Vanish, the slack has two strings, and the front one goes into the yo-yo and the back one goes behind it. Now that makes a lot of sense, it's very natural. But in this trick, both loops of the slack are going to pass in front of the yo-yo, and that's what's going to enable you to form the kink to land the double triangle. Now it's important that you see how this works for yourself. So we're going to break it down by going for a Ninja Vanish, grabbing the string with your throw hand fingers, coming through this loop and pinching the yo-yo string with your non-throw hand, taking the slack loop you just caught and passing it in front of the yo-yo, pulling the pinched string back through that loop and kind of opening it up, and you should be able to land the yo-yo on that string from the back, and that should give you the double green triangle. There should be plenty of twists going on, and that means you've landed it correctly. You should be able to pop out the back, and you should have no fake knots, no nothing, no nonsense. Easy to get out. So that seems like a lot to do in the air all in one go, just from a whip, but actually you'll find out that the mechanics of the whip make it quite easy and you don't need to worry about most of it. So one of the crucial parts of this as well is in a normal Ninja Vanish, you tend to whip most, if not all, of the string. So you see there's a nice long slack loop there. Whereas for this trick, if the loop is too long, it's just not going to happen. So one thing that's important to practice is kind of cutting the loop early. So you see kind of about half the string maybe is doing a whip, and the other half is just kind of hanging out at the bottom. And you can do that just by kind of snapping your wrist a bit early on the slack and not making too much of a swooping motion, but more of just a wrist snap. Once you've got that, instead of putting it to the back, you kind of want to whip, instead of parallel to your body, you kind of want to go perpendicular and kind of whip like this. So pop the yo straight up to come to the inside. You should see everything tangling there, there should be a bit of a mess. But if you can, and especially if you know double on Ninja Vanish, this should be quite easy. Try and whip to the inside and then catch that loop on your thumb. Nice and big, should be quite easy. And you know you've done this right when there's a twist of the yo-yo string around everything, and untwisting it just kind of leaves you nice and open. You know you've done it wrong, like a normal Ninja Vanish, if you land that and there's this kink here. That means you're doing it wrong and you're not getting that string to the inside. But once you've cracked that, that's actually 90% of the trick right there. So to do the actual trick, instead of pulling that whip all the way around and back up to your thumb, you just kind of want to let it hang out. So you're going to kind of whip it down and then a little bit forwards, and it should kind of hang out flat. I'll show you that from the side so you can get a good look. You see the slack is kind of hanging out flat, and the yo-yo string, which is the important bit, is just kind of hanging out. It's right below the string coming from your throw hand. It's probably pretty flat, and that's going to be your target for this trick. Because when you actually are going to do the double green triangle, you're going to whip that, and the yo-yo is going to land on that string. Not like that. That's a common issue, and actually I still have it, where you're not getting enough separation in the strings. But you should land on that back string, and that should give you the double green triangle. Now that comes the other awkward part of this trick, which is that usually you're used to the yo-yo coming up on the outside and landing into a slack somehow. Kind of coming up on the outside of your arm and the outside of the string. Whereas for this trick, the yo needs to come inside. So it's a good idea to just kind of practice that kind of pop there. It can be a bit unnatural. Popping out your elbow like that kind of helps to give it more space. And it should be passing both to the inside of your arm and to the inside of the string. A good way to check if you're doing this right is to go for the slack and just land on the top string. And you should see this kind of floppy tower-ish sort of thing hanging out there. That means that you've cut that right. If it's going to the outside, you'll probably just end up with this kind of hanging string like that, and that means you're doing it wrong. But once you can crack that floppy tower, that means you've basically done the trick. From there, it's just a matter of spotting the string, making sure your separation is good, and landing on that string. Another thing that can help the separation, and you saw earlier I landed on a single triangle instead of a double, that happens because you're just not getting enough separation. The two reasons for that can be that your slack is too short. You see, if I make it too short, either they don't tangle at all, or they kind of just tangle together, whereas if I use a nice longer loop, you get more separation there. The other thing that can help by that is pulling your hand a little bit back, your throw hand, and that should just kind of spread everything out quite nicely. You can see there's quite a nice spread there. Obviously if you go too far you're just going to miss everything, and if you go forwards it's really easy to pull every string just too far forwards and there's no way you're going to land it. But with just a little tweak back it should be quite nice. That's pretty much everything there is to the trick. The only other thing you'll notice is that I'm not popping the yo-yo way high. It's actually never going above my non-throw hand because it doesn't need to. The string that it's landing on is way below everything else. So there's no point popping it any higher, it just makes it more accurate to land and you don't have as much time. The whip has to be slower and it's weird. So just pop the yo-yo up only as high as you need it. It also makes that kind of awkward pop a little bit easier because trying to get loads of height out of here is a bit weird and kind of you risk hitting yourself in the face and all sorts. But that should be everything you need to know to do the double green triangle. It is hard, it's going to take you a lot of practice, but as you can see I can land it pretty much every try with just a little bit of practice and the tips that I've given you today. So to break it down just one more time, all that's going to happen is you're going to do a Ninja Vanish slack, but pass it in front of the yo-yo. You're going to use not the whole string, but just kind of half of it, maybe 2/3. And you can play with that proportion, you can play with where you're holding the string. I kind of hold it about halfway down, but I use quite a long string. If it's too short, there's just almost no way you can land the string, land the trick on the string. And if it's too long, you're just going to have an issue trying to get the slack going and having everything just be too floppy. And then all you're going to do is pass that slack in front, land the yo-yo on its own string, and there's your double triangle. Just pop out the back, all nice and clean, and there you go. That's Double Cheesy Ninja Vanish. I hope to see you guys landing it soon.